the Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network presents Worldview Media Podcast, where Gordon and Joyce Runyon view popular media through the lens of the biblical five-point covenant model to help believers appreciate and apply principles of exciting narrative and engaging storytelling.
Hello! Welcome. This is the Worldview Media Podcast. Here we are. It's four of us in the family. We're missing our Jack, but there are four of us here. I'm your host, Gordon Runyon. On the right side of your podcast listening dial is my daughter, Carmen. Hello.
Hello.
Way across the way on your podcast listening device, it's my daughter, Jordan. Hello.
Hello.
And over on the right side,
The
where she
left
always is Joyce.
And which one of us is
Wait.
on the left?
Wait a minute.
I said you were on the left, right?
You said I was on the right.
Oh, it's because everybody listening it's
reversed. It's mirrored.
Yeah, right.
That makes sense.
So I'm on their right and Mom is on your right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
They're left.
both they're on the right in a sense.
We're on the right side. Right team.
There you go.
All right, we're coming to you live from
Yes.
the place where we're getting all our superhero costumes made. And we're talking about... See, we don't get to go to Edna.
We just go somewhere else.
Yeah, we're not superstars.
We just make our own, right?
Just like Tobey Maguire in that first Spider-Man movie. How we
Where
have
he
to
sews his own
we just have to
uniform.
sit down and draw it out and then
Try to find the
sew
right
it.
material and hope for
Somewhere
the
we
best.
find all this stretchy fabric and nobody is suspicious.
Right. Well, anyway, we're talking about The Incredibles Part 2.
Part 2.
Is that what it's called?
It's incredible.
Just
It's
two.
Incredibles 2.
Incredibles 2. This is a long time coming for those of us who enjoyed Part 1.
Yes. It's true.
14 years.
Now, the interesting thing is that 14 years after Part 1 is done, Part 2 starts like the movie starts with the very next scene
Yeah.
that Part 1 left you with.
Uh-huh.
Kind of interesting. I'm not
Ki-
sure
not
it
what I
works
was-
after 14 years,
Yeah.
but
I liked it.
but the story takes off without kind of missing a beat.
Mm-hmm.
With the
Underminer.
threat of the Underminer.
Took me so long to get it.
Oh, you didn't understand Underminer.
Well, not when I was first watching it. I don't even
Oh, that
remember.
was 14 years ago.
Yeah.
How old were you then? Like 12? No.
About 10-ish.
And
Wow.
I was 12.
So I was just like, okay, so he mines under, but don't all miners
Go under.
they're all under. I don't understand. And then
So-
randomly, a couple of years ago, I was thinking about it.
Perfect sense.
He's undermining them. I get it.
Yeah, it was crazy.
he's very subversive. He undermines everything.
Yeah,
Wonder
yeah.
if he came up with that name himself and how long it took.
Yeah, so I wonder if there are 10-year-olds who watch this one who will, sometime in the future, have a lightning bug moment about screensaver.
I was just thinking, who actually has a screensaver now?
Right. Okay, so here we are. The Incredibles family has a new challenge, and kind of interesting in the world that they're doing this in. In the Incredibles world, superheroes have kind of been outlawed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you're going to do that, really, but superheroes have all stayed underground, and it's illegal for them to
Be super.
be super in
Well, they're in
public
like a
or-
witness protection program
Yeah.
where they're replaced and located and
Nobody knows who they are.
they just got to blend in and be normal.
Well, that's in the first one too.
Yeah.
It explains it more is that the reason they're not allowed to be superheroes anymore is because it's too expensive.
Yeah. It was too much of a burden. Wait, did I see that on Avengers?
Yeah.
Yeah, Avengers totally ripped off the storyline.
Incredibles did come first, so
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
just gonna
Yeah.
say.
Okay, but then along comes Saul Goodman, and he has a
Cartoon Saul Goodman,
cartoon Saul Goodman has
who actually kind of is
a good guy,
a good man.
He's
Right.
a great guy. Winston Dever.
and he's got a proposal of a PR campaign, a way that they can maybe hopefully get superheroes back in business.
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks Mr. Incredible just destroys too much stuff and he's bad for publicity. So,
Right.
He's a PR nightmare.
right. So he's focused on Elastigirl, Mrs. Incredible.
Yeah.
And
But she's not supposed to be Mrs. Incredible.
No,
she
she's
has
just
to be.
Elastigirl.
Elastigirl.
She has to go under her
her
former.
nom de plume.
Yeah.
Is that right? French?
Well,
Oh,
She's
I
not
don't
a
know.
nom de
Arthur.
plume is specifically like
It's
a pen name.
It's kind of fuzzy, but I don't think after they got married that superheroes were around for much, much longer.
Yeah.
So she may have never gotten a chance to actually become Mrs. Incredible.
Well, I don't know that.
She's never called
I don't know that she would have.
Yeah.
Even if. They,
Yeah, I don't think she maybe would have done that too.
I mean,
In the Fantastic Four, you have Mr. Fantastic.
and the Invisible Girl.
Yeah, and they don't.
And even if they got married, she wouldn't suddenly become.
Well, they do get married and she doesn't become.
She
Mrs.
doesn't become
Fantastic.
Mrs. Fantastic because that's not her.
No,
Does she
that's not
turn
her.
into Invisible Woman?
No, I think
No, she's always just the Invisible Girl. It's her way of maintaining her
youth?
youth.
But I don't think this is unrelated. But I don't think they actually call her Invisible Girl. That's just like the press calls them that, but they don't actually go by those
They
names.
just call her Hey You.
Well, they call each other like Sue and Reed.
Yeah, they call each other by
Babe.
like their actual
Yeah.
names.
Right.
Johnny.
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 We're off topic.
Okay.
Rabbit trail alert. Okay, so Elastigirl goes out on these missions and she is on the trail of a bad guy called Screenslaver. He uses computer screens to hypnotize people and make them do bad things.
Yeah.
I think that happens.
In real life.
That's not even a metaphor, that's real.
How many hours on Facebook, people?
I've been on the
How
computer
many
all
hours?
day.
And I don't remember anything.
I don't know what I've done. Okay, so therein the story goes, and so eventually the whole family kind of gets dragged into it, and then it is complicated because superheroes themselves become hypnotized and they become bad guys, and
Yeah.
so it's really messy at some point. And so that's the basic plot outline. So let's go around and y'all tell me how you feel about this movie. Oh, the subplot is that the baby Jack,
He's coming into his own.
he's manifesting like a million different superpowers,
Yeah.
and they're totally out of his control, and
Yeah.
it's just kind of funny.
Because he's a baby, he can't control
No.
anything he
No.
does.
He can't control his bladder. He can't control
Yeah.
his laser eyes or anything.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd expand the description of the subplot that Bob has to.
He's
Mr.
taking
Being like a
Incredible.
stay-at-home
Yeah,
dad
he
now.
has to learn how to like deal with the day-to-day of.
Right,
Homework and
right.
meals.
Children.
Because I didn't
Yeah.
know this, but apparently I guess The Incredibles isn't it set in like a 1950s
It's in the
kind of
50s.
so, and I didn't realize that, and it's a lot more clear I think in this one with like the
The
TV shows that they
fashions
watch and the fashion, but like it's the 1950s and here he is suddenly a stay-at-home dad and like
Yeah.
Totally against the grain.
Yeah, it is against the grain for sure.
so him trying to like figure all that stuff out and help with homework and
Yeah.
yeah.
Being super frustrated with having to do it to start with.
Mm.
So that's
Yeah. That was an interesting turn of events.
yeah.
Okay, so that was a bit of a rabbit trail there. I had asked the question.
No, you're talking about
That
the
was
subplot,
a rabbit trail.
and then this is all it is, but there's really more to it. But anyway, rabbit trail.
So, overall impressions. What'd you think of this movie, Carmen?
Me, I liked it. I really did. Like, I'm pretty easy with movies, but I really did like this movie quite a bit. I liked the original Incredibles a lot. And I know some people are like, oh, it's been, 14 years of my life. And they pick up the movie 2 seconds after they left off the last one. But I'm okay with that. Like, honestly, I was really, just kind of excited. Like, oh, this is,
My friends.
these are my friends. This is just where it was. And I thought that was really good. I liked, like, with that in mind, kind of the relationships with some of the characters. I think it was really nice to see them progress with that that Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl have had this big kind of, just recently, she thought he was cheating on her and, all of this stuff, and kind of reconnecting and, reaffirming, hey, you know what, I actually do love you and I think you're pretty great, sort of thing. So to have that happen and then to see them kind of the way supportive. That be supportive of each other, and that they're really even though they spend a lot of the movie in different places, I thought kind of the demonstration between their relationship was really nice to see, because you can see very obviously in some scenes that Mr. Incredible is not interested in being home. He's not really happy that she's going out and doing this stuff, that he's really discontent with that. And there's some parts in that too where she's kind of like, I don't think this is going to work and stuff. But I think the first night that she's gone, he calls her and he's trying to talk about Jack, and she freaks out. And she's all, I knew this would happen. And he's all, what do you mean you knew this would happen? And she's just like, I'm sorry, I misspoke. And I was like, oh, that's really cool, because you don't see that a lot in media in general. I think you don't see a lot of parents and married couples being a united team, and that was really kind of neat for me to see. At least I thought that was really interesting. I liked seeing all the other heroes.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool. All these kind of underground people that have
been hidden
away, and I think it's just really interesting to see, because the first movie we only see Mr. Incredible. We see Mr. Incredible, Frozone, Elastigirl, and that's it. And you don't
and
get
all these ones that are gone.
Yeah, and so then to actually see them and to see the connection between the two different times, that you have the old Incredibile shows up and it's the same thing, and that the Gazer Beam, that, Gazer Beam was in the first movie and stuff like that, and trying to piece together, when did all this happen? Unrelated, but I think it's really funny that Dash just communicates by yelling.
He's just loud.
He's just loud.
He's a loud talker.
He's just loud. He just yells all the time.
The more excited he gets, the louder he gets.
Yeah, and that,
I know people like that.
Yeah, that made me laugh really hard too, because in the first movie they still do that. Yeah, they're all pointing at me, significant eyebrow raises. In the first movie that they do that they talk over each other and it's loud and people say things and they stop. Like when Dash is all, defines who I am, and Bob's talking about something else. He's like, what does that even mean? He's like, I don't know, I saw it on TV. And I'm like, that's actually what a family kind of does. And it's not exactly like our family.
Yeah.
But I mean, the radio land people would probably say, oh, those Runnions, they just talk over each other and I can't understand what they're saying, and they're just loud and stuff. And I really thought it was kind of neat to see those kind of relationships and the squabbling and stuff like that. And I thought the redirection with a lot of the different plot elements that she's trying to become. She's trying to make superheroes legal, but then she's also, she's being personally distracted by the screenslaver, which is also a redirection of a redirection.
Yeah.
So I thought it was really good. And I'm going to stop because I've talked a lot. So.
Ma, what's your overall?
I really liked the movie as well, and I think the reason they can pick it up right where they left it off is because it's animated. Had this been a real live feature film, there's no way you can go back, recapture 14 years and say, okay, no, let's go. And so,
well, don't you feel like you'd have been really, I feel like I'd have been really feeling gypped if you come back in to watch part 2 and suddenly Dash is 20 years old.
Yeah.
That wouldn't seem right. I mean, I want young kid dash. I want that little guy to grow and learn, and
Yeah.
I want to be able to see that.
So, and like Carmen was saying, just to see the struggle of being a family and to address that, it's not easy
Yeah.
and it takes two people to do it, regardless of where one is at, where both of them are working. And so, I thought that was really nice to see that here's this superhero family that has problems with homework.
Right.
And, has problems with the baby won't go to sleep. And so,
The baby's fighting a squirrel.
Where is the baby?
So it was nice to see them just be having to deal with normal things for being super.
Yeah. Well, don't you think the movie was really about family? And the first one was too.
Yeah.
But really, that's what it's about. The superhero plot is really not, it's not ingenious, and
Yeah.
and the plot twists are actually pretty predictable, and
Well, instead of in the first movie where, you're super, but you can't do any of this stuff and you can't use any of this stuff, to the second one, okay, these are your gifts, and so we need to find a way to hone them and to make them
Right.
better and to have you learn how to handle these things.
Yeah.
And that's really parenting. Every
Yeah,
child
for
is
sure.
born with their natural gifts and their natural things that they're not so well at, and it's building one up and saying, okay, now I know you're good here, but don't
you
get
do
carried
have to
away.
work on these other things. Yeah.
That it's being even with recognizing talents and recognizing places that can be improved.
Well, the Christian parent has the added responsibility of thinking in terms of long-term and dominion mandate and stuff like that, and helping children kind of hone in on what is that corner of the garden that God is giving them to cultivate and work on, or at least even if they don't find it before they leave your home, you've at least given them the tools so they can find it. And so I guess what I'm saying is I felt like the strong part of the movie was the characters.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's now that I'm older, but I realize that the stories I appreciate the most are really more character driven than plot driven. If you have great characters with kind of a humdrum plot, it's still fun to watch.
Yeah.
Still a good movie.
But a really complex plot with like two-dimensional characters, like I think that's a description of like the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movies,
Pretty weak.
Yeah.
where the plots are impossible to follow and all that. And by the end of it, you don't care because the characters are bad.
It's like he's gonna win at the end.
Right.
It's like, okay, so he's gonna jump off this building, jump into this thing, jump off of that.
Now the best one is you get great characters with a fun plot that's well constructed. So for me, I guess I would give it an A. I don't need to ever see it again, but I mean, for what it was, I felt like it was just fine and had a lot to recommend it. All right, Jordan, you're last.
Well, I liked it. I didn't know anything about what was going to go on when I went in because I hadn't seen anything about it. I didn't know anything.
No spoilers for you?
No.
Unlike other movies.
Well, sure. But I thought it was good. It went in ways that I wasn't maybe really expecting it to go sometimes, with just like plot twists and stuff. And like once the screenslaver guy shows up the first time on the train and there's the little message and stuff, I immediately had like my theory about what was actually going on and stuff, but then that turned out to be wrong, and and I was like, oh well, that's kind of surprising.
It's good to be wrong.
And kind of fun, yeah, like because I was gonna be a little disappointed if I called it right from the first ever time this villain ever makes any kind of appearance, but I hadn't, and so that was kind of fun.
Didn't you think Saul Goodman was the villain for a while?
Well,
I kind of did.
I kind of would have, just because,
Saul
it's
Goodman.
him. But that, I guess that was the one spoiler I had, was that I knew that he was not going to end up being the bad
really?
guy. Yeah.
Oh, you knew it.
Yeah, because him and Reagan were talking about how, weren't you expecting him to be bad? And yeah, I know, I was shocked when he wasn't bad.
Was that me and Reagan?
Yeah.
We spoiled it for you.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry.
the only thing that I...
He was actually supposed to be. Like when the original script was being written in, Winston Dever was actually supposed to be a form of a bad guy. But
He looked like he could have been.
yeah, but as it went along, he ended up being, actually a really what he is.
Yeah,
he's really
just
just kind of a decent guy.
Exactly who he says he is
Yep.
and stuff.
Right.
But
Which-
I guess that was the one thing that I did know going in. But my original idea was that it had been that the screen slavery person, that this identity had been constructed by the people she was working with in order to create problems for her to then solve really easily with no casualties, and that would be what helped the PR thing move along. But then that ended up not being
Quite.
being right, and so I thought that was kind of fun.
Well, me too. I felt like that was the obvious plot. Good for them for not doing that then.
Yeah.
Well, I really like The Incredibles. The whole thing about why it's taken this long for it, because like when The Incredibles came out, the reviews
hit,
and stuff
yeah.
was huge hit, stuff like that, and everybody's like, make Incredibles 2. and the director Brad Bird, who's also Edna, in case you didn't know, the director is also the voice of Edna, but he's like, no, I'm not gonna make a movie unless I have a story to tell.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I want to. I like these characters. They mean a lot to me. But
I want to do it right.
I want to do it right.
Yeah.
And so that's been...
Well, and Disney's missed the mark with that so many times with doing the twos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Of
a lot of-
sequels
for sure.
A lot
tend
of
to be
other
so
movies.
bad.
but
For
Brad
sure.
Bird was like, no, I'm not doing it unless I have a good story. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so everybody's like, oh, we need Incredibles 2. Brad Bird, where's Incredibles 2? And
Well,
then
good for
finally,
him.
finally he's like, all right, I got a story.
Because
We'll
I feel
get it
like
going.
Disney has ruined Star Wars with that kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
let's just put out a show.
Well, I'm just thinking, was it Mulan 2? And
Oh, yeah.
isn't there a Hunchback 2?
Is it
Yeah.
Cinderella 2?
Straight to
And
DVD.
Doesn't make
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
sense.
There's
You
a
know.
couple Aladdin sequels.
Aladdin 2 and 3.
And yeah.
So
and the
that's...
multiple Lilo and Stitch movies that
Yeah.
all blend together and no one cares about.
So, that's part of, like, when I went into this, I was super excited to go into it because I was like, he's been working on this and thinking it over for 14 years. I knew whatever it was going to be, quality.
Yeah.
That this is something that he personally had a lot of,
He was invested in these
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
and the whole reason that it hasn't been done yet is because he wasn't willing to just kind of be like, whatever.
Yeah. Let's just
Yeah.
go with the hype and
Right.
make some cash, and it doesn't matter what the product is.
So yeah, fun fact, he's also the voice of Edna Mode, and he did like the rough of the voice character, just to like placehold it, and everybody liked the.
They said, "That's
everybody
it."
thought it was really funny, so he ended up doing the role for real.
That's funny. That's funny. All right. Well, I think we're done with segment 1 of the old podcast, and we will take our break now. And when we come back, we've got a little game to play,
Oh boy.
and then we'll talk worldview issues.
The Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network brings to you a complete lineup of podcasts where you will hear practical and tactical theology. Our desire is not simply that you consume our shows, but that you also live out your faith in every area of life. We can talk all day long about these things, but if we fail to put them into practice, then we fail as ambassadors of Jesus Christ, our King. Subscribe now to your favorite Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network shows. Or you can subscribe to the Reconstructionist Radio Master Feed, where all of the content we produce, including the audiobooks and audio articles, will pop up as soon as they are available. And don't forget to visit reconstructionistradio.com to volunteer as a narrator or to partner with this ministry financially. May the Holy Spirit stir you into action for Christ and His kingdom.
Here we are back at the Worldview Media Podcast in the home of Edna Moles, waiting for our. What's her name?
Mode.
I said
Like
Moles.
fashion.
Edna Mode.
Edna Mode.
Oh, well, that makes sense. More sense than moles.
Well, yeah.
How long have you thought it was moles?
14 years.
Well, that's a good one.
All right, so in this movie, baby Jack kind of begins to manifest superpowers. And boy, howdy, does he ever begin to manifest superpowers. He's the 31 flavors of superhero. And you never know which power is going to show up when and for how long, and hilarity ensues.
Yep.
And so our game is to go around, and if you could have one of Jack's powers for yourself, or for someone else,
So you get to pick someone else's superpower?
what would you choose? What would be your Jack power? Anybody have one?
I like the one where he can multiply himself into a whole bunch of different Jacks.
Oh, yeah.
Because then you could just multitask all day long.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good one. I hadn't considered that one.
And then the real original me
Could just be
could just
taken
be
back.
like taking a nap or something.
Right. If you multiplied yourself and then all your selves went to take a nap at the same time, and then you brought all your multiple selves back into one, would you get the benefit of all those different hours of sleep?
Oh, I don't know.
So if Jack splits into 6 Jacks, and he takes 1 hour of nap, all 6.
No,
then
the others work.
When he pulls them together, and he's just one Jack, is it like he was just asleep for 6 hours?
I don't know.
That'd be horrific. You can't let a baby sleep for 6 hours in the middle of the day.
Well, that's some of the problems they were having.
Right.
So I just looked it up. In between the first and second Incredibles, they think Jack has about a total of 14 to 17 different powers that he's shown.
All right.
I think that's what
Is that
Edna
a
was
list
saying.
that-
Was 17.
Oh, you've got the list right there?
Yeah. So
All right, the game has changed.
Oh.
Now, what we're going to do is go around, the 3 of us who don't have the list. We're going to name off the powers that we saw and see if we can, how many of the Jack powers we actually know.
they're missing at least one. But it was a fast one that
All right, so Carmen knows one that's not on the list. All right, Mom.
So when he disappears and goes into another time dimension,
yeah. Teleportation, intradimensional.
The laser eyes. Pew pew.
Yeah. Comes in variety of options, including purple, green, red, and ray gun pew pew mode.
He does that fire one where he's a fire baby.
Human Torch.
Yeah.
Flame baby. Yeah.
that's what I was going to say. Where he, that may be the teleportation one, where he gets out of places. Is that the teleportation one? Like where he's in his crib and then he's not in his crib and he puts something on top of it because he thinks he's crawling out?
So he's got I'll put it down for walking through matter.
Okay.
No, that's different.
No, because he's there
I was
and they
going to say
cover...
walking through matter.
Okay, alright, so we'll do walking through matter, and then there's also intradimensional wormhole creation and travel, not to be confused with teleportation, which involves simply vanishing. Sound good?
Yeah, that means you mentioned both of those.
Okay.
Because she mentioned the dimensional thing and now also the kind of wormhole deal.
Yeah.
All right, walking through walls.
Okay.
Boom. All right, Jordan.
He's got. Does he have like he does that devil baby thing?
Yeah, they call that the hobgoblin baby. But I
Hobgoblin.
That was
they
the
call it
power I would have chosen for myself.
Yeah, demon baby.
To become a
about
demon
flying.
baby?
Does he fly?
It's got floating, but I'll take it.
Okay.
Because he probably will be able to fly, but it's just kind of like, hey, let's go.
Okay.
What's the one where it's my turn, what's the one where he gets giant, huge, and can bust down walls and stuff.
So they don't. They call it rapid expansion, giant baby mode.
Giant baby. Okay. Did you mention your multiplicity?
Oh well, yeah, the multiple baby
babies.
one.
Okay. That's on here. Duplication.
Sure.
Multiple baby.
I don't know. I'm done.
In the first one, he at one
Wait.
point.
My turn. And the one I have is from the first one, so I can't let you say.
All right.
Go on, Dan.
In the first one,
Where it gets real heavy.
yeah, he can turn
Wait, I
into
said it.
some kind of metal thing and
Yeah.
it gets real
I took
heavy.
it because I
You said you were
remembered.
done.
I changed my mind.
Jump back into the game.
I remembered something.
Automatic disqualification.
Okay, so metal baby.
Metal baby.
Okay,
And he's super heavy when he does
I
that.
said.
they got it. Full metal baby.
Oh, Full Metal Baby. That is what I was
Jordan,
gonna
can you
say.
come out with one?
Does he get like super strength? I think he does because he's throwing that raccoon all over the place.
It doesn't have it, but I would bet he's probably got something because that was a little bit extreme how he's kicking that raccoon around.
All right. You got one?
Well, since you took my other one,
It was totally mine by the rules.
by the rules, by your own rules, what about, does he just get to be invisible?
I don't think he has invisibility. Do you guys want to? You've got most of them.
Is there one where he like breathes fire?
No. You can just like start naming powers.
Well, what was the one that he did something else to the raccoon?
So what about
Yeah.
shape-shifting?
That's so. This is
Cheater.
Are you cheating? It just says his primary power is
his
shape-shifting.
Yeah, so that's the general. All right, I'll call it. I'm the ref, so I'm calling you done. So the general consensus on Jack Jack, apparently, according to the internet, which knows everything, is that he's supposed to be. His power is polymorphism, which just means that he does whatever he wants. But he does shapeshift. He turns kind of into like a mini Edna. He changes his nose and his hair.
Yeah.
And then he also it's really quick in his fight with the raccoon, but he turns into like a gummy baby.
Oh,
You know, and it's real quick that he turns into a gummy baby. And there's at one point that he also like shoots lightning. And I'm not sure if it's like involved with his laser eyes or anything like that, but he does have like a lightning.
like the Star Wars Emperor.
Yeah. I just don't remember if that's from his eyeballs or not. And then he also has the rocket sneezes.
Oh, yeah.
Where he,
where he
sneezes and then his little matter thing, he pops through the ceiling and flies around.
Is that what they called it?
Rocket sneezes. That's what it's listed on here. But so that's about it. And then the other thing too is that he does multiple powers at the same time. That demon baby, he also sets himself on fire while he's doing that. So he can do a couple different things at a time.
Interesting.
So Jordan would be the multiple baby. Dad would be demon baby. What would you do, Mom?
I would. I don't know.
Oh, he's also telekinetic because he moves her glasses and stuff, and he moves
I would do that one.
that one, moves stuff with your brain.
Yeah. And then I wouldn't have to multiply myself. I could just.
Well, how many things can you move with your brain at once?
See,
Just
I think a
one.
lot of these are far out, but I'm actually working on teleporting, and I feel like if I can perfect that, I'll take over the world.
All right. Good.
Teleporting.
See-
I feel like I'm 20% there. I'm on
My problem with this game is that if I was going to have an Incredibles power, I'd actually want Dash's power because I've always just wanted to have that.
You want Jordan to be the pew pew laser eyes so you can aim
Yes,
her.
if I could give someone else as one of Jack Jack's powers, it would be either Reagan or Jordan. Maybe both of them. Give them the pew pew laser eyes, and they can have one with each
I would
hand.
hate that.
I know, but I would enjoy that.
I would just leave. I wouldn't associate.
If I had to have a Jack power, I don't know.
It's hard.
I guess I'd be the flame baby. That's kind of fun.
Human Torch.
Human Torch baby. Oh, the other thing, I don't know if it's a superpower or not, but Jack is like really smart in this movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Figures things out really fast.
yeah, like he's watching the TV and he sees the robber and he sees the raccoon and he pulls a comparison between
Because the
these.
mask.
You know,
It must
and
be
you can-
evil and you're taking my trash.
and that they what is it? They go when they're like fighting the bad guys. You know, they're all there, so all the family is like fighting these bad guys, and Jack sees them smash the glasses, and Jack is like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do, and so like immediately like jumps on people and starts ripping off glasses, and
Oh yeah.
you know that
He
he's
does get it figured out.
that he puts stuff together really quick, and that like even with the telekinetic thing that he like knows the trash can lid goes on the trash can,
Yeah.
and he puts it up there, you know.
Sometimes that's the problem with smart babies.
You know too much.
Yeah, but that he got
You're
it.
feeding them alcohol to dumb them down. You have too many healthy brain cells.
Give me a break, man. Give me a break.
You know, so that
Yeah.
All right, let's
He's a good
move on. We should talk about worldview stuff, worldview issues. I'll bring up the one that I have heard and just get your comments on it. I've heard some people not being happy with the supposedly exaltation of kind of a feminist ideal. Like the idea is that the stay-at-home dad thing is being promoted here, and working mom and stay-at-home dad, that's like, you know, that there's propaganda in this movie in favor of that.
Well,
Is that the message that y'all feel like you walked away with?
no.
No,
And-
no, not even
And
close.
I think
No.
there's some craziness that, you know, a stay-at-home mom, like, does nothing. You know, what is that mom doing while she's home? Is she just sitting around and doing nothing, you know? So because she's at home, does that mean she's not working or contributing to the
No,
family?
but there
or?
are some people that would say that, you know, God assigned gender roles, and so the woman's place is in the home and the dad's supposed to go out and do all the work, and that as soon
So
as
the
you
mom
mess
stays
with that a
home and
little
does
bit-
no work?
Well, she works in the home, and
that's not
of
really
course
work.
she's really busy, but
It's
you
not
know.
real work because she's not getting paid for it. Because if you paid somebody for all the work she did, you would, what? How much would she get?
Yeah.
Well, minimum wage at least.
Well, if you put together, maybe this is a rabbit trail, but if you want to put together, you know, all these rich people that hire however many people to come in and cook their food, do their grocery shopping, schedule their stuff, take their
Yeah.
kids to school, take their kids to practices, personal trainers, chefs, whatever you want to do, you know,
Yeah.
that there are people that literally go out and hire like a fleet of people to do everything that a mother will do in one house. So, like, I get why people are upset, but I also am kind of like, you need to chill. Because, you know, either way, in either movie, really, between the two of them, I would have to say that Helen is kind of just, you know, killing the game. You know, that when she's at home with the kids, that she's got everything under control. Like, she literally takes her kids with her on a secret mission.
Well, she doesn't mean
You know,
to.
she doesn't mean to, but as soon as they're there, she's like, all right, well, we're doing this, so you need to listen to me, and it's fine. You know, and then when she goes and she's a superhero, it's like fish and water again, you know, nothing changes. And for me personally, like, you don't care, but I'm not married, you know, I'm
Yeah.
not. So if that's what it is, that the woman's place is in the home, then I'm literally, how am I supposed to support myself if I'm not married? You know, I have
Yeah.
to go out and I have to work.
Yeah.
And if the time comes, if God puts the right guy in my life and he says, you know what, I want to go out and I want to, you know, earn all the money, and you're gonna stay home and you can do that, then you know what, hey, that's fine. But I think it's part of my gifts that God has given me, I don't think personally I'd be good in that situation. You know, that like, okay, you have to stay home all the time. And if I have kids, you know, then that's my job, that I'm going to take care of my kids. But I think you do have to have kind of some thought and kind of some thinking with that. I mean, that's something that you have to sit down and talk with your spouse and have some prayer and some meaningful conversation about, you know, what do we do when we have kids?
Or what are your gifts and where would you be better using those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like,
Well, and just as income, you know,
Yeah.
who's going to be the one that can really...
like
And
we
it
have,
shouldn't matter if it's the woman who has the better job.
yeah, like we have family friends, you know, they're a young couple, they've got 2 kids, and it's the wife that goes out and works, that she's kind of the primary breadwinner for that family. You know, and he's got a job that he does as well, but you know, his kind of main thing is that he takes care of the kids, you know. And I personally don't know a lot more people my age that are more kind of committed to following what they believe is God's plan for their life.
Yeah.
You know, that is something that they're kind of constantly thinking about and constantly talking about. That's why they have 2 kids, is because they feel like one of their callings was that they were supposed to adopt one of them. So they have a son that they've adopted that he's currently staying home taking care of, you know.
Yeah.
And I think part of that, yes, there are gender roles, and yes, there's, you know, a woman is supposed to be submissive to her husband, but you can't just put submissive under, you know, submissive means you have to stay home and I have to work, you know. It's the over under thing you were talking about with wrestling.
Yeah, right. But, you know, in the same place where it says a woman is supposed to be subject to her husband, it says that we're all supposed to be subject to one another. And so, yeah, I think that when you're married, you're especially trying to put your spouse over, and you're willing to go under in order to make that happen. And I just think the idea that because you have one set of genitals and not another, it means that you're supposed to be doing this type of job and not this other type of job. I don't see that anywhere in the scripture. The Proverbs 31 woman,
Yeah, I was thinking of that one.
she's out buying property and selling it on her own, and she's got obviously her own small business, and she's bossing people around that work for her in the house. And
Well, I don't know if I'd say she's bossing people
Well,
around.
she's the boss.
She's in
She's the
control.
boss, yeah.
She's in control of
I meant that
things.
she's in charge.
Yeah.
And so I'm on the other side. I don't believe that gender roles mean that when you're married that the marriage has to work in a certain way. I think you and your spouse get together, and you might not even do it on purpose. It's just as you get to know one another and know who's suited to do what and who's got which gifts and what opportunities come up. That's a big thing. You know, you don't know. In this movie, the opportunity came up for Elastigirl that wasn't open for Mr. Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so does that mean that they did something wrong by taking the opportunity? They got together as a couple, they both agreed, they both mutually submitted to each other's wishes, and this is the solution that they came up with.
Well, and I think they were also looking at the long-term goal that, you know, you do this for now for a while.
Right, and he
So that
will
this
be back
opens
out
up
there. Right.
for, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you know, everything you're talking about that you guys have to like come together and talk and stuff. They did that.
Yeah.
You know, that they went by themselves and they
Sure.
talked about it, and you know, she's all, you worked for a really long time and you were miserable the whole time. He's like, yeah, I was. So, you know, maybe I should do it. And I think it's important to note that he's the one that says she needs to go and do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that it's
He had to talk her into it.
yeah,
She
he
wasn't.
He
she
really
wasn't gonna
did.
do it. She didn't want to leave, you know. And for him to say that, you know, you can do this. We can, you know, start moving forward. Our kids can maybe have a future out of this. I can maybe get back into what I love doing, or I can go out and try and get a job that I'm gonna hate in 2
You're
weeks.
right.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
And maybe I won't be there.
yeah, and literally 2 weeks, like having just recently-ish gotten out of trying to find a job, you're not going to find a good job in 2 weeks. You're not.
Yeah.
Well, I can't see. I mean, I know people are upset about that, but to me, you've got to be significantly anal retentive to get really upset about this movie because, I mean, and you've got to be that obsessed with gender roles and God says you have to be in the kitchen and you can't
Well, I
own your
wanna
own
know-
kitchen somewhere
What?
else.
I want to know where these verses are
Yeah.
that says I have to be in the kitchen.
Right. And so
Where are they?
it's a little bit of a tempest in a teapot for me, especially if you watch the movie and you see what we've been talking about, that they get together as a couple and mutually come to this agreement, and it's not her asserting her feminist power or anything
Yeah.
like that. She doesn't even want to do it at first, and so for me, I think it's a non-issue, non-starter.
Yeah.
And frankly, you girls are very different, and I can see you getting married to men who are very different. You're not going to be attracted to the same types of men,
Yeah.
And so to expect that your marriage is going to look like her marriage, and that your relationship to your husband is going to be like hers, I think that's completely ridiculous. And there's nothing in the Bible that says that they have
Well,
to
and
look
it
the
shouldn't
same.
because you have two different personalities involved in this
Right.
relationship.
Yeah.
And they're going to be two different personalities every time. You're not going to have a little cookie cutter that, well, this is how the wife is and this is how the husband is. And, what is that, Stepford Wives?
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's kind of that's, to me at least, that's a dangerous sort of way to approach things, especially when it's based off of religion. I'm doing the air quotes on it, religion, where everything is very cookie cutter, that my wife is going to be like this and my children are going to be like this, because
Well, it
Everybody's gotta
doesn't
fit
take
the mold.
Yeah.
it doesn't take into consideration your uniqueness and your
Right.
God's thumbprints on you are going to be different than his thumbprints on somebody else.
I just said fingerprints.
Well,
Thumb.
The image is the thumb.
Different thumbs. Millions of different thumbs.
well, you will come up with different fingerprints than somebody
Yeah,
next to
for
you,
sure.
and that's just the way it is. Your fingerprints are different, and that's how you are identified, and your traits and your characteristics are going to be different. And
Well, submission is a real thing, but like I say, I'm convinced the Bible says it's mutual between the husband and the wife. That the husband is supposed to be like Christ and lower himself as low as it takes in order to put his wife over. And the wife is supposed to put herself under to put her husband over. And how that, when you have a man and a woman who are both committed that I'm going to be a servant to you, then however that works out for them, nobody's got the right to come in there and tell them that they're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
If they're both serving Jesus and
yeah,
loving God by loving each other, if that looks like more like a 50-50 thing, or it looks more like the man kind of being the leader, nobody's got a right to come in there
mess with
and
it.
say it's wrong. you know?
well, people get caught up on stereotypes and traditions that have nothing to do.
that are just cultural and not
Yeah.
even
Right.
based on anything stronger than just the culture. This is just
Well,
what
then-
Or the church
society
culture.
does.
The
Yeah.
Evelyn girl kind of gets after Elastigirl too. She's all, now you're out in the field, like you get to be in the spotlight for once. She's all, what do you mean for once, sort of thing. She's like, I was never in the background. I was never,
Yeah.
a sidekick. I was my own person on my own,
Yeah.
and that, I thought that was really cool. I like this discussion, but I have other things.
Well, feel free to
I will.
lead the
Discussion.
discussion.
I will, because I thought, I don't know, it ticked something for me when I was watching it. I watched it twice. I went with you guys and I went with Jordan. But so they're at the table, talking to each other, the whole family, and they're talking about how things are different now, and and they have a discussion about laws.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was going to bring that up too.
Okay. Good.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
me too.
So the
It comes so early in the movie too that I was just thinking about it the whole time. I couldn't even concentrate.
Right, and you're like, there's our worldview discussion right
It's
there.
right there. I don't know. I can just enjoy the rest of this. I don't have to do anything. So that and it's interesting to see their two viewpoints, because I feel like they have, at the end goal, I think they have the same kind of desire that they both want to be superheroes again. But whereas in the first movie we see Mr. Incredible, doing that on his own, that he's like, you know what?
I don't care what
you say, I'm Mr. Incredible, know. And that, Elastigirl straight up says, he's all, if it's a bad law, and she's all, there are laws to change laws. So it's, kind of the legalistic version versus the more kind of
resistance to tyrants.
Resistance stuff. And I was like,
Well, let's see if we can reproduce that conversation. Mr. Incredible's viewpoint was that there are such thing as bad laws that are unjust. And if there are bad laws that are unjust,
are we obligated to follow them?
Aren't we doing injustice by following unjust laws?
Yeah.
And the reason I want to bring this up is because this is a conversation that actually happens on Facebook among Christian conservatives. I've seen it a million times.
Yeah.
And as soon as you say something like Mr. Incredible says, then somebody comes in with Elastigirl's line and says,
but there are ways.
If there are unjust laws, then
there's a system.
New laws come up to change the unjust
there's a
laws.
system where you can change those laws. And then she says, and if we don't do it that way, if we just follow what you're saying, where you don't follow the laws that are not right, then we just have chaos. And his point back to her is, what do we have now with unjust laws governing everything?
Yeah.
How is that not chaos? And so I just thought that whole conversation was really interesting. It's funny to me. You can tell whose house y'all have been raised in, that kind of stuck out in your minds as well. And you're like, oh, there it is.
It's our major discussion point. So I don't know how major it is. I mean, it comes to, that what law you're gonna follow. Is it,
Well, it's a matter of your priorities.
Yeah.
Who ultimately has authority over you, and why does that thing or person have authority over you?
Well, some of our forefathers, our Reformed forefathers, who gave a great deal of thought to this, I think that a lot of the time they came down on the side of saying, for the sake of Christ and for the sake of not unnecessarily disrupting things and just being a jerk, I'm going to be willing to put up with a lot of unjust laws that aren't actively hurting people and destroying people's property and stuff like that. The speeding laws, the ticket for not coming to a complete stop at the stop sign, and there's nothing in the Bible about any of that. And so what do? Do I just grab my pitchfork and my torch right away? And I think the answer that a lot of the older Protestants would have said is, you put up with everything that you can put up with. And Jesus' instruction about going the extra mile with the government official makes you go 1 mile. You put up with stuff, and you bend over backwards. But when that unjust law really does begin to destroy your neighbors, you can't put up with that. And then the other issue is, in the world of the Incredibles, I think, given their world, I think the law was unjust, but how do you know? And there's nothing in that movie that would lead you to believe that anybody's got a real standard for saying which laws are just and which ones aren't.
Sure.
For Mr. Incredible, it was just how he felt about it.
Yeah.
This is obviously wrong. And,
Right.
Well,
because it's making him have to hide.
It's crimping his style.
This vital part of who what makes him who he is, and his kids, this big part of their identity that they have to just not even deal with.
Right. And so for me, I think that sheds light again on how important theonomy is and how important it is for us to have a standard in the law word of God so that we can say it's not just how I feel, it's the fact that the government is doing things that the scripture says it's not allowed to do. And that's where, that's where the issue is. Well, I'm proud of you girls. You both came up with that as a worldview issue.
Imagine.
That's awesome.
And I knew I was gonna have to talk about it, so I was like, okay, find something.
What am I going to think?
You didn't even have to look for it. It was just there.
I know, I was like, thank you.
And it was like so blatant and obvious.
Right.
You didn't have to like massage.
No. And then I really did. I just kept thinking about it the whole movie, and I'd be like watching this other scene that had nothing to do with it, and I'm like, they said those things.
We gotta go back to those things.
If we're obeying unjust laws, how is that worse than this?
And then I was trying to like see if one of them came out on top in the end with what actually ended up happening. And I'm not sure that I could really pinpoint who the movie said was right about that argument.
No.
And
I
feel
have
like
an answer. Do you? Do you have an answer?
I feel like
to
it
that?
might be. I feel like maybe Mr. Incredible, because she did have to break the
Yeah,
law
there you
in
go.
order to show that, hey, look.
But then the law
What's
got
with this?
changed, yeah.
But then the law did just get legitimately changed, but it was because
Of the
Of what
action.
she was
her.
doing,
It was
yeah.
because of her illegal
You
activity
mean
and not because
actions
of a.
have consequences that can change things?
So her actions basically amounted to civil disobedience.
Yeah.
But she didn't have any property damage, so it was okay.
Yeah, that was the
Well,
big.
I
they
don't know,
damaged
that
some
train
property.
thing tore up
She
some
didn't.
stuff. didn't
Nobody
it?
got hurt though.
But that wasn't her doing that.
Oh.
There's always collateral damage.
Yeah, but like even with the train, like what really happened to any of that stuff? Like the only thing that really got blown up was her
Well,
bike.
and then I guess my other thing, the flip side of that is, okay, so there's no superheroes, but there's obviously evil villains that are still out running around. So how is that right? That, okay, well, I guess we have to keep the evil villains because we can't
Well,
make
Well,
them
they're all
behave.
just breaking the law.
they have it in their
So you can't make a law against people who are going to break the law.
I
Is
don't
there
know,
a gun
they try
control
that.
analogy there?
Somewhere.
Is there a gun control analogy?
Maybe.
It's too heavy-handed if we point it out directly.
I mean, because you're kind of, to me, the analogy is if we outlaw guns, only the outlaws will have guns.
Yeah. So if you outlaw super powered people,
Yeah.
only people who don't care about being outlaws are going to go ahead and use their superpowers.
Right.
Yeah.
And they are.
And they are.
They're
clearly.
underminers.
They're
Totally
the
there.
underminer and everybody who's bad.
This is another
Everybody
place
feels
where
bad.
Marvel ripped off the Incredibles,
Yeah.
then, right? Because
Sure. Every
the
superhero
Captain
movie
America series has been about that same kind of thing.
has ripped off the Incredibles.
Captain Libertarian.
Oh, I had something
Anything else? Carmen's train has gone off the track.
It's gone off the rails.
I'm thinking. I thought the bad guys thing was kind of interesting. That
About superheroes being a way to not have to deal with your own problems.
yeah, that was that. I'm not gonna spoil it and stuff, but that the general thing is that
You're not
This-
responsible.
this thing happened because somebody didn't want to take
Take their own
responsibility for
action.
themselves.
Yeah.
You know, that they wanted the superhero to come in and take care of them. You know, and I get it, you know, like how many
Yeah.
times does it come up that something happens and you're like, man,
Somebody should do something.
somebody should do something, or like, I just want this one thing to be right. Like if someone could just come in and fix this one thing. Like today I had a stamp and I had ink all over my fingers and the stamp wouldn't work, and I had to stamp all these envelopes, and if I didn't get this stamp to work, then I was gonna have to handwrite all of these envelopes. And I was like, if I could just have one stamp, you know, my whole life would be amazing and stuff like that. You know, that's all I need to be happy is just this one stamp. And I think that kind of the argument of the villain in this one is that people were using technology, but the main point of it was that people were using superheroes to kind of get away with not having to be responsible for themselves, responsible for their own actions, responsible for their own safety.
Yeah.
And the real life parallel is police and the government.
Yeah. and you can put in whatever kind of organization you want to put into that.
Yeah.
That someone should be helping me, someone should be taking care of me. But in reality, whatever organization, whatever human construct that you put in that position, it's already filled. Whether or not you want to admit that that's already filled, it's already filled. That you do have a God who is looking out for you and taking care of you. And maybe you don't like the way that care is being applied to your life. Tough things happen.
Getting your attention,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. But I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really good scene too. Just like watching the movie, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome! Like, this is such a really good scene."
All right, y'all. Anything else, or should we wrap this up?
I don't know. It's a good movie. If you haven't seen it, you should.
Okay, so it was unrelated to everything else, but I thought Frozone was really, really good in this movie.
Yeah.
Like the whole time, every time Frozone showed up, I was like, "Yeah!"
Yay, Frozone!
Yeah.
So.
And Dash also seems to have a really good cross. Like it's the second time he's used that and just taken somebody out.
Yeah, it would be one of my takeaways for writers and creators. Oh man, you got to pay attention to characters.
Yeah.
You got to have characters who exhibit some kind of vulnerability, and you got to watch them grow. And for me, that's so huge, and that's what made this movie for me. Anything else, y'all?
I don't know. There's probably more, but we've been
There's
going
more.
on and on.
Somebody smarter than us can do the rest.
What? All right, then.
If you disagree, y'all have my email address on a different
Whoa.
account, so Carmen at internet.
Google.
Web. Yeah.
Internet.google.
Internet.google. If you want to fight about Incredibles 2, you can send me an email.
All right, y'all.
Thanks
Go
for
out there and
listening.
Dominionize. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.
You're crazy. You gotta do it better. Go ahead, do it again. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Worldview Media Podcast. Please visit reconstructionistradio.com to check out the other podcasts in our network and to download our free audiobooks.